I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. My guest today is a researcher and author. His book is titled Gen 6 or Genesis 6 and the Ozarks. I'd like to welcome Nicholas Daigle to the show. Nicholas, how are you? It's been great talking with you so far. I'm happy to continue this conversation.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it big time.
Yeah.
And thanks for reaching out to me. That means a lot, honestly.
No, like I told you, and I mean it. Like I recognize good research when I see it. I see what you're doing. I've had time to thumb through your book, which I plan to finish. And I mean, you're doing great research, man. And like, what is this story you're telling me about before we hit record? It seems like it's a story that's like close to home with you. It's got certain symbolism. It's got, you were just about to say it's beneath the water. We were talking about dams earlier. I know that we flooded ancient sites. We can circle back to all that, but what is this site again? Rice Lake?
So what I'm talking about, and first off, I want to say my book is kind of divided into two parts. The first part, I talk about this gentleman named Sterling Newberry, and he was in the Springfield area in the 1930s, and he found some out-of-place artifacts, 7-foot skeletons, all that different kinds of, all different things relating to that. But the second half, they're made up of appendices, and I have 4 of them. I wrote them for Ancient America because I know a gentleman who knows Wayne May, and he liked some of the research I was doing. So he said if I were to write articles pertaining to an area called Shell Knob, Missouri, that he would be willing to publish them in his magazine, Ancient America. So I've had 2 of the 4 already published. One was published like 6 months ago, and then the second one was published just this past month. So really,
that's Ancient American Magazine for people listening. I love what they do over there. I want to, shout them out.
So what really, down in the Shell Knob area, it really all started because I have a friend named Kent Christian who has pointed out to me that there is a mountain or a knob down there that looks strikingly like a pyramid. And it's in the background of my picture right here.
Yeah, that looks like a pyramid for sure.
I mean, it really, and even on LiDAR, so I've come to acquire LiDAR topographical maps, stuff like that. And I have a lot of pictures in my book of different LiDAR images. It looks like a pyramid too, like almost like a conical type mound, pyramidal mound structure. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a natural mound. I speculate that it definitely had importance for ancient people because I've gone up there with a friend, like we've gone hiking up it, and you see flakes all over the place. You see old stone implements just laying around, so that it showed that at one point it was populated. Could it be pre-flood? Could it be a pyramid pre-flood? I speculate, I wonder, but I don't know. Or could it even be altered? So like maybe it's a mountain that had some alterations happen from early people.
Did they have the sun? You said they had a sun worship temple there?
So what happened with it is oh gosh, I think it was the 1940s or 1950s, they dammed up the White River Basin. Well, in the White River Basin, you had mound sites that are now under the lake. You have caves with burial sites under the lake. Well, there was 3 caves that was literally within 1 mile of this Shell Knob Mountain. So one of them was the Hardman Cave, where they found a 5 to 6-year-old burial. And of course, in the article, it was excavated by Carl Chapman, and Carl Chapman believed that it was this 5 to 6-year-old died of, what do you call it? A sickness. But it's like, you don't really know how this child died. But the fact that the child was buried in the cave, I feel like would have been pretty significant that they found in there. Then there was other burials, and then there was also the Kimball shelter, Hardman Cave, Kimball shelter, and then the Rice Cave. Well, the Rice Cave, they found a couple of burials in there, but they also found a sun emblem in the very back of the cave, etched into the wall, which for me, I meant the sun symbol, that would be reverence to the sun. And as you kind of get into the study, you see it seems like almost every civilization had their form of sun worship. And a lot of times it seems like sun worship involved child sacrifice.
Yeah, and they were doing it over here. Do you know about let's see if I can find it. I got a picture of it here. I was looking while you were talking. It's
Oh, you're
called
fine.
the Pontotoc steel. They found it in Oklahoma.
No, I don't.
It's a sun symbol. And this one's interesting because there's more to it, but this is what it looks like. It's one of the most free. It's the one right here. It's one of the most Freemasonic things I've ever seen found over here.
I'm about to say that looks like a pyramid too.
It does. I was going to point that out as well. You're apt to do so, and it looks like it had an eye or something up top, just straight up Freemasonic.
Yeah.
But around the side here, there's words, and it's a hymn to Aten, which comes out of Akhenaten, out of Egypt, but this version of the hymn they think is Ra Baal, so it's Canaanite, Egyptian. It's a merger of the Canaanites, and Ra obviously is the sun god to the Egyptians.
Yeah.
So they were worshiping this over here, and who knows who these people were. I mean, this gets into Iberian Punic and Ogham. So that, and this is too much to break down right now, probably. It sounds like a headache. But
I'm tracking with you, though.
There were Celtic people who had ties to Egypt. I think they came through, what is her name? Tia Telfi, the Egyptian princess. There's two of them. She had a sister or a daughter named Skoda.
Okay.
They named Scotland after. They were Egyptian princesses that started like the Scots and the Celts and all that, according to some legend. But they came out of Egypt and they brought that with them. And there's, if you get real deep in the rabbit hole, it's said that even Jeremiah from the Bible, because they were part of the tribes too. They were also part of the lost tribes. So it's a headache to like try to figure all this out. But anyway, I say all that to say, like, I think relics like this are pointing to what? This was found in Oklahoma. It's not far from you.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of guy. So I don't know. In my mind, you have a 5 to 6 year-old burial. You have a sun symbol. You have something that was a high point, which did have relics there. Could it have been a center for sun worship? I don't. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. I mean, it's no more beyond the realm of possibility than looking at a 5-year-old skeleton and say, well, he died from sickness.
Yeah. And often what they would do is they would elect those kids as their rulers because of the bloodline.
Yeah.
They would take a 6-year-old and make them king. That wasn't out of question.
I never even thought about that, honestly.
They've been doing, that's the bloodline thing, man. That's what all this goes back to, if you ask me. And I won't get into it all today, but I think that bloodline, some of those post-flood bloodlines, we'll just stick with after the flood for this conversation. But the sons of Ham, Ham, right? That's where you see the occult rise again after the flood. I mean, it's who's his sons? Canaan, the Canaanites. Cush, he settled Egypt, the Egyptians. One of the sons of Ham literally was called Egypt or Mizraim.
Okay.
And then Put, who was Libyan. So those 4 guys from Ham's 4 sons are the people who brought us the modern day occult and the secret societies. And that's a lot to get. It's a lot to get into, but I think that filtered over into ancient America because these people who were part of these bloodlines or these belief systems came over and brought that with them. That's why you see Baal Ra, a combo like that. That's the
Hmm.
Canaanite sun god and the Egyptian sun god. And guess what? Those are two brothers
Yeah.
responsible for those two people groups. So
Yeah.
you could trace it all back, to a thing. But anyway, before I get too carried away here, something about this story you're telling me caught my eye. We talked about the
Okay.
sun symbol. The other one is that it's underwater. It's
Hmm.
underwater. And you said that it was in the 50s, I think, right?
Yeah. It was in the 50s that Table Rock was dammed up.
Well,
And
this goes back to the dams. This goes back
mhm.
to the dams. And like I told you before, I've got, I don't know, it's around 30 at this point, 30 ancient sites that I've identified here in America that are beneath lakes that were created by dams. I wanted to bring it back up because you said five of them were in Missouri.
I think five. So there's Table Rock Lake, there's Lake Taneycomo, there's Lake of the Ozarks, there's Truman Lake. There might only be four then
Okay,
that I can at least think of.
that's great, man. I've got Truman Lake on my list.
Okay.
The others I do not. So I'll have to check this out and add them to the list, man. Let's see here. Oh, there's a Buck Shoals in Arkansas. I don't know how far that is from you,
Oh,
but
it's like 30 miles from um the s- the Missouri Arkansas border. So it's fairly close because there's also Beaver Lake, which is so Taneycomo, I mean it's all part of the White River Basin. Taneycomo feeds into Table Rock. Table Rock then feeds into Beaver Lake. But at one point it was all the White River.
Mhm.
So and I do know, I don't know if you ever watched Search for the Lost Giants with Jim Vieira, if you had ever been a fan of that show. Well, there
Mhm.
is an episode about the Stileville giant. It was like an 8.5 foot giant that was found here in Missouri, in Stileville, Missouri. But then they also go to down to northwest Arkansas to Beaver Lake, and supposedly there was lore that in the I think it was like 1901, a 10-foot skeleton was found in a cave that is now submerged under the lake.
Here it is. This one's on my list, and it's Beaver Dam.
Mm,
And I have a note here. It's created by the Army Corps of Engineers in 1944. Jim Vieira did a show where they went to
yep.
investigate these old giant newspaper articles about giants, like you said. They found that this one in particular was based on a true story. People, if I remember correctly, they talked to people who remember their grandparents having stories, seeing the
Hmm.
bones, seeing the tombs, seeing the ruins in this case too, right?
Yeah.
Um, they were like reputable people. And so Vera goes in, he finds the location where the giant was found, and here's some of the details. It was originally found by a naturalist. The article says his name was Riggins, and he unearthed 10-foot skeletons in the Ozarks. Vieira goes to visit, found out the site was flooded, like what we're talking about. He actually put on a diver outfit or scuba gear or whatever you want to call it, and dove down and saw the cave where they found an ancient wall. So this place was
Hmm.
packed with stuff, right? 70
Yeah.
foot or so, I think is what he said. That's so probably a wall to I'll say a city or a settlement because that's the whole thing. Like you can listen to people can go listen to Dr. Greg Little. He talks about how these were walled settlements all over the rivers, all over
Mm,
the Mississippi Valley. Like this is nothing new. Like we're not speculating here. This is what these people did. So in that one is beneath Beaver Lake in Arkansas.
hmm. Well, yeah, and I think even in that episode, they might have saw rock art in that cave as well.
Oh,
But so, and I don't know if this was just for Hollywood magic, but they had to leave the cave. I don't know if the air tank was running low or not, but they had to leave. So it caused some of the soot to rise up so that you couldn't really get a good look if it was rock art or not. It kind of leaves you speculating. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I didn't expect to talk with you today about the dams. like I said, not a lot of people know about this.
Yeah.
People who listen to my show do, but it's not every day that I find somebody like yourself who I could talk to about this. I've got Buck Shoals Dam here as well.
Buckshot. Bull
Arkansas.
shoals? Bull shoals?
You're right. Sorry. Bull Shoals Dam. Yes. Arkansas, authorized by FDR in 1947, built by the Army Corps of Engineers as part of the New Deal. We did an episode talking about all this. This was the New Deal pushed out a lot of this. It was WPA,
Hmm.
Works Progress Administration Act. It was under the guise of we're going to give Americans jobs.
Hmm.
That was the excuse, and progress, of course, right? Air quotes
Yeah.
progress. Uh, this one was found pre-flooding by the WPA. It's in their excavation records. Like this is real deal stuff. Like we were saying before, the government sent in legitimate people to excavate these sites, and
Yeah.
they actually have record of this. Like they don't
Yeah.
want you to know about it, but they did record it. In this case. So this one was recorded. The excavation records talk about massive stone blocks as a foundation for some sort of a major ruin. Said it had walls of fitted stone. It said they found bones, and the bones were of people who were massive,
Hmm.
and they called it overall an archaeological anomaly.
Hmm. Yeah, I think even with Table Rock, like I mean, so there's also another one called Fellows Lake. Fellows Lake is not a big lake. I mean, it's actually it's the water reserve here for Springfield. Well, I've looked and they dammed up, I think it was part of the crap. I can't remember if it's the Pomme de Terre River or if I think it's the Sac River, but they dammed up part of it. And I had seen like 5 years prior mass excavations. I'm talking about from, 20 teams of archaeology and archaeological students going to this area to excavate as much as they can before the rising waters floods it all.
That was the thing here in Tennessee as well.
Mm,
Like I've got 5 or 6 in the area that I know about on my list, and that was the thing that they were sending these teams in, and they were finding stuff. They were
yeah.
finding stuff that was um, groundbreaking.
Hmm.
You get into the Ice House Bottom site. That one's even up on Wikipedia, right? And that was one of the temple sites I believe that they found. There was another one where the
Really?
guy from Cambridge, or I think it was Cambridge, maybe it was one of the other big universities, came in and said, "Okay, this looks like an Egyptian temple."
Hmm.
And then I think what he said was, "This looks like a temple to Osiris and Isis." And what the teams only had a limited amount of time to go in and excavate before they flooded the whole place. Like they found this stuff at one of these sites in Tennessee. Um, they thought may have been older than Göbekli Tepe,
Really?
and they still flooded it.
Hmm.
History changing,
Yeah.
history changing. And then you get into the Native American legends because they moved into these sites.
Hmm.
And they also, yeah, these were older sites. They were here when we got here. We moved in. And some of the legends talk about, oh yeah, they were the Anukatani. They were the Nahulu. They were giants.
Huh.
We moved into ancient sites that
Well,
were inhabited by giants. And it's across the board. It's not
I was
just
about
the
to say,
Cherokee. It's
isn't it?
for ancient people up in Cincinnati. They
Yeah.
said that right where Cincinnati is today, the city itself, like many of our cities, are on the mound sites. The Native Americans said, yeah, we moved in, but before us, the giants lived here.
Hmm. Well, isn't it the same thing with like even the Inca as well?
Yeah. Yeah,
That
for
with
sure.
the megalithic stone walls down in Peru. I feel like I've heard that from Timothy Albert. Just watching some videos with Timothy Alberino, I feel like I've heard him make that claim as well.
Yeah. Yeah. They were, I think that they were seafaring and they came over. And
Hmm.
I think they came from both sides, if we're being, I think they crossed the Pacific too. Like I know they crossed the Atlantic. That gets into the work of Philip Beale, who built a replica Phoenician boat and sailed it around Africa. And there's been several other people. Thor Heyerdahl built a boat as well
Okay.
in the style of the ancients, and he sailed it. They got in the boat and they crossed oceans. They're like, okay, yeah, the ancient people. And then we find the 3,000-year-old Canaanite shipwreck in recent time. 3,000-year-old Canaanite shipwreck.
Where at? I didn't hear about that.
Off the coast, out in the Mediterranean, outside of Israel, 70 miles out, way out, pretty
Wow.
far out. And they were crossing oceans.
Yeah.
I'll send you that one. That one might be pertinent to what you're doing, because I think that one shows that the Canaanites were coming over here.
Yeah.
I think we could conclude that. I think it's apt that we talk about the giants too, because that's what you wrote a book about.
Yeah. Yeah. It all connects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all connects.
So what I was gonna say. Yeah, I even think that I think the Phoenicians were the Canaanites.
Yes, they were.
I really
Absolutely.
do. So, and they were known as a seafaring people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's the Amorites and the Phoenicians were Canaanites. And it goes back to Ham and his son Canaan. That's where it all. It's somehow, we go to Genesis 6, and I want to segue into talking about your book here, because I think this would be a good place to. I want to make sure people know about it, and that we can give it some time, some airtime today. But yeah, Genesis 6, it says that they were in the earth in those days and afterward, and it seems like it was the Canaanites that applies directly to the afterward part there, because the Rephaim emerged out of the Canaanites, from what I can tell. I don't know how that happened, but the giants come out of Ham's lineage through Canaan, his son, it seems like, and they're the people who have the boats. It all makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I've even thought about it. They would have known how to build a boat, because Ham helped his father build a boat too.
Exactly.
Exactly. Noah was really the first world traveler, and that knowledge would have been passed down through his three sons. So, no, I agree. I concur.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think if anybody could build a boat, it was the sons of Noah.
Yeah, exactly. They only did it for 120 years, right?
Right. I love that, man. Yeah, tell everybody how you got into this, and this was a good little warm up. I know you and we'll get back into this the juicy stuff here in a little bit, but for now, tell everybody how you wrote this book, what got you into this, and subsequently where you're at today.
Yeah. So really, what got me into this is I'm a hospice nurse. That's my full-time gig. I love it, but you need a breather from it. You need a hobby to get away, because I feel like it is the Lord's work, but it's also a very draining work as well. So that it's kind of I guess you can say, my escape from doing hospice. But a couple of years ago, also, I had read through Genesis. I took the journey of reading through Genesis. I had never really delved through Genesis, and I'm tracking with Genesis 1 through 5, the creation story, Cain killing Abel, the whole lineage from Adam to Noah. I've heard this before. It's nothing really new. Then I come to Genesis 6, and I'm like, this kind of seems out of place, because you have these sons of God going into the daughters of man, creating these giant beings. Like, what is this about? I've never been taught this in any mainstream Christian setting, I would say. So that really got me going on my journey of delving down and looking at different resources to learn what the Genesis 6 narrative is. I used a lot of people like, Dr. Michael Heiser, Tom Horn with Skywatch TV. L.A. Marzulli was a big one that I used. Timothy Alberino, just the common names we hear when you're first starting to get into this realm. So it was really through soaking that up that I kind of started to develop a good foundation of what Genesis 6 was. And of course, I'm still learning. But there was not a podcast. There was a documentary that I had watched called Angels and Giants, Nephilim and the Watchers. And I think it had a lot of these big names in there as well. Well, it was just interesting because in this documentary, they pretty much make the claim that all these megalithic sites, all these ancient ruins, all these mounds across America, pyramids all over the world, they were all constructed by these giant beings who were the offspring of fallen angels with the daughters of man. So I watched that documentary and I had to really digest it. So I kind of put it all away for a little bit. I'm like, this is some deep stuff. I'm like, is this just kind of sci-fi? It seems a little out there. But then as I started to logically think through some of this, I'm like, first off, the Bible is a book of the supernatural meeting the natural. So, yes, this is out there per se, but so is me claiming that I follow a Middle Eastern man who was born of a virgin and claims to be fully God and fully man. Or Moses talking to God through a burning bush that's not being consumed.
Right.
Like, I mean, fire coming down from heaven on the prophets of Baal with Elijah and consuming them all. Like, the Bible is full of supernatural.
Yeah.
This is no different.
It's no different.
It's only different because we've never been led to believe it or been taught it.
We haven't been taught. I actually have an excerpt from your book here.
Okay.
I'd like to dive into Genesis 6 for a second, just remind people what we're talking about here. And this is from your book. I was following the story of the creation and the start of Noah's flood, but there was a small part in Genesis 6 that took me for a loop. The part was right before God sent the flood and evolved beings called the Nephilim. And here it is, Genesis 6, 1-5. When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Then the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bore children unto them. They were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And all that is in there for a reason. There's one sentence builds upon the next sentence, builds upon the next sentence. It's all there in context, right next to the previous sentence for a reason. It's like when he says these sons of God saw the daughters of men, took wives of them, and the next thing he says is, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he's flesh. It's like, let me remind you that you're flesh. I see what you're doing. You're trying to get around that, and you're trying to make something else that's like half human here. Let me remind you that you're flesh, and we're going to cut that down to 120 years here. And then the next thing he says builds upon that, which is the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. That's not a coincidence that he mentions that right there, because that's telling you the product of what's happening here. It's like, you've got the sons of God and the daughters of men. Now it's telling you what they created, and it's given it a title, and it's just the Nephilim. And the Septuagint says that the angels of heaven were the sons of God. They use the term angels of heaven for sons of God. So this is, and in the Septuagint also, instead of saying Nephilim, it says giants. So where you included the ESV, right? I think if you go to the Septuagint, where the ESV says sons of God, the Septuagint says angels of heaven. It says they're angels. They're not Sethites.
Yeah.
They're not people. They're angels that came down. They're the watchers that came down. I know you know this, but like I think it's good to remind people, because I believe this, right? This is my
Yeah.
show. We talk about this. It's good to remind people why I say what I say on the show here. And I think there's no way around it. In fact, the Hebrew for sons of God here is B'nai Elohim.
Mhm.
It literally has the word Elohim in it,
Yeah.
that's a supernatural being.
Yeah.
So there's no way around what's happening here, if you ask me. Like these were supernatural creatures, beings, watchers, angels that came down and tried to start a bloodline. Did start a bloodline.
Well, and here's something that I also thought, this is for layman's terms too. Very simplistic.
Yeah.
Um, Jesus says, "Do not be unequally yoked," correct? Well, there are still people who are unequally yoked. The reason I don't believe that it's the lineage of Seth mating with the lineage of Cain is because we still have people that are righteous and unrighteous who are getting married and they're having children. Those children are not 12 foot tall.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, even the simplest terms, we're not seeing giants out of unholy matrimony today, which the Sethite view, all that it really is unholy matrimony. It wouldn't make sense why unholy matrimony would make a supernatural entity, a supernatural creature.
Yeah, it wouldn't explain why they were giants and men of
Mm-mm.
renown and mighty in the land and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's going back to something you said earlier. It's just we've not been taught this, but I
Hmm.
think this is clearly what the Bible says, to the point where if it's taught properly, I think a child could understand this.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's all right there in Genesis 6, and if you want to go further, the Book of Enoch really spells it out too.
Yeah,
And
it does.
I want to remind people that was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah.
And in the 1700s, a guy named Bruce, last name Bruce, explorer, went out to Ethiopia and found a couple copies. Gave one to the King of France, kept one. One went somewhere else, Spain maybe. They were floating around kind of under the radar in the 1700s. And then 1946, 47,
Hmm.
1947, the Book of Enoch's found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And wouldn't you know it, the fragments line up with what this guy found in Ethiopia. It turns out the Ethiopians had a correct copy this whole time. It all lines up, just like when we find pieces of the Bible.
Yeah.
They typically line up. I've seen it. I've seen pieces of scrolls that were found that have Bible verses on them, and they're so close to what's in my Bible right here. So
That's
close.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's like it's a testament to how God preserves His word. And I
Yeah.
realize that Enoch is not technically part of God's word, but I would make the argument that we could still use it. We don't
Yeah.
have to treat it like divinely inspired word of God, but I think we could still use it. I mean, I think Jesus was talking about things that were only mentioned in the Book of Enoch, even, and then Jude. It's quoted in Jude and other places. I think it's a legitimate book.
Well, and my friend Brent's even pointed out we read American history books and we don't say, well, that's not God inspired. You shouldn't read that.
Right.
Or I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of things we read.
Mhm.
You read posts on Facebook that's not God inspired, but you still read. Like there's a lot of things that we read that's not God inspired, but there can still be some accuracy and credibility, but it's not the divine word of God. It may, but it may point to the divine word of God. So,
Yeah, for sure. But I do think, like, this story at the end of the day, not to harp on it too much, but this story is in the Bible. I mean, I read it for a
it
reason
is.
on the show today. Like that Genesis 6 is clear as day.
It is. Yeah.
You don't even have to go to the Book of Enoch if you don't like the Book of Enoch. I
Yeah.
just go open your Bible and read Genesis 6 again. Just look at the Hebrew, look at Septuagint, do a little research if you don't trust me, and I think you'll see it's pretty plain. It's right there. And I mean, you can check different versions too. I read yours, you used ESV.
Mhm.
I've got the the NRSV, New Revised Standard Version here,
Okay.
and I like the Genesis 6 from that one too. It's
Hmm. Okay.
pretty
I need to
clear.
check it out.
Yeah.
I never even thought about Genesis 6 though being a cause effect either. From one verse
Yeah.
caused the next verse. And then it even, I mean, even to the point to where it brings the flood. Because of this sin and the
Yeah.
abomination of what the Nephilim were, it caused more sin and depravity in the world, which then God had to completely wipe it out with the flood.
Oh, verse by verse by verse, it builds off that whole thing just builds. It's just adding more context to what
Mm.
was just said previously. Yeah, it's brilliant how it's laid out,
Yeah,
and it
that's
and
interesting.
it's story. I think it's the story of humankind in our war, in our place in this supernatural war between good and evil.
Yeah.
It's that important, and then you can go. Then you learn about Genesis 3:15 and the seed war.
Yeah.
And I think that the seed war references, us humans who were like Adam or like Noah. We're
Mm.
pure in our generations, pure in our genes. And then there's this other group that's not pure in its genes that was messed with. That would be
Yeah.
the Nephilim, right? So
Yeah.
I think it spells it all out that there's an us versus them. There's a God seed versus Satan seed. That personally, I take it that far too with how
No,
I look at it. But
I- I'm, I really believe I'm leaning that. Not even leaning. I believe it too, honestly.
But, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that you need to go there necessarily. I think you can stick with Genesis 6 and see for yourself, like that. There's, this is a story of this whole spiritual war that we've been born into, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think we see that this story filtering down into these ancient sites that we're talking about. Clearly,
Hmm.
we talked about how we think that they came over here to ancient America too, and to your region. You live in. This is one of the things I love about what you do is that you do your own hometown research.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. Is like when I see somebody who's going out in their backyard and doing research and finding stuff, like I really want to talk to them. But I think that the Genesis 6 story shows up over here in our own backyards,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's a part in your book about Graham Hancock. He had a
Mm.
role in like shit, like even the secular people will sort of have pointed
Yeah.
out that the giants are a thing, right?
Yeah. So like, I
In the
mean,
ancient sites.
and like, so yeah, I guess I can get back on my story. So I watched this Angels and Giants, Nephilim and the Watchers. I put it away. Well, then I started to watch Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse, not even watching it with the mindset of Genesis 6 narrative, just to watch it because I'm like, hey, this is interesting. I want to watch this. Well, as I started to watch it, I realized elements of Genesis 6 and the flood was repeated throughout all these different ancient cultures. All ancient cultures had a flood myth. A lot of them entailed giants, and a lot of them entailed, some of them entailed sky beings coming down and mating with women, creating these half hybrid or these half human entities. Um, we see that with the Sumerians, with the Anunnaki were winged gods that came down and they created giants. I believe Gilgamesh is actually, isn't he from the lineage? I think he's like, hold on, I'm drawing a blank. He's the offspring of an Anunnaki, correct?
They, yeah, they said that he was not not fully human. I think one third something else, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the details, but yeah, he falls in line with the Watchers,
Hmm.
as does Poseidon from the
Yeah,
Atlantean story, right?
yeah.
Poseidon, it says in Critias that Poseidon chose for him a woman, an earth woman, and had
Hmm.
ten sons with her. One was Atlas, and they
Yeah.
built the kingdom of Atlantis from it's very similar to Gilgamesh as well, as it lines
So
up.
it's just interesting. I mean, even going into Greek mythology, the demigods. I mean, little g gods mating with human women, and they created a demigod. Well, that is a Nephilim.
Yeah.
Little g god being fallen angels. So yeah, really just watching Graham Hancock, and I even think the Pyramid of Kahlua in Mexico, there's lore surrounding that, that there was a flood that came, and after this flood, some giants built the Pyramid of Kahlua, and they built it for the purpose that if another flood came, they were going to hide in the very top of the pyramid to survive the flood. And then you have the island of Satsuna, who built Giganti on the island of Malta. You
Hmm.
have a female giant that built this megalithic temple. So it was just interesting how in all the different ancient lore, you had a giant figure who built some kind of massive structure, and it usually revolved around or before or after a flood. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so when I watched that, I'm like, holy crap, that backs up Genesis 6.
Yeah, I think so. I've got an excerpt from your book here on this one
Okay.
too. I thought this was really great. So you talk about, I won't read this whole thing,
Oh, you're fine.
but this you're talking about Malta,
Hmm.
right? The Sansuna, that the giantess who created the temple there. Then you talk about Cholula, the Sumerians in the Epic of Gilgamesh, a giant who built a boat to survive a global flood brought on by the Sumerian gods. The Sumerian mythology also mentions the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were supposed to be the winged gods that came to Earth and mated with humans, creating these demigods and teaching man advanced arts and knowledge to spur on civilization. It sounds strikingly similar to the tales of the Watchers and the Nephilim in Genesis 6. And then lastly, in Graham Hancock's miniseries, every single megalithic structure, earthwork, or pyramid he analyzes is all aligned with some sort of lunar, solar, or celestial body. Knowledge that could have only been passed on by the fallen angels who learned it while they were still in heaven with the Creator.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's and I won't read your whole book on here, but that'll be
You're
the
fine.
last excerpt. That'll be the last one because I want people to go out and get it, right? But no, that I really like that part because I mean you got a point, and I think let me see if I can find it. I was reading something the other day, and yeah, here it is. Oh man, I think this backs up. Now, okay, I'll do the rant again. Now, this isn't scripture. Okay, however, this was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's called the Book of Jubilee.
Mm. Yeah.
I think it's like your history book analogy. Don't throw it out. This
Yeah.
Jubilee and the Book of Enoch, I think we can read them and glean information pertinent to what we're reading in the Bible. So there's something very interesting in the Book of Jubilee, and it's in chapter 8. Um, it says Canaan, son of Ham, right? Canaan finds a stone inscribed by the watchers with knowledge. And it says he sinned by it. And he didn't want to tell Noah because he feared Noah's reaction. And I've come across a lot of these little nuggets like this that talk about how this group of Noah's sons who rebelled from their righteous father Noah reconnected with this knowledge of the
Mm.
watchers. And that's just
Yeah.
another example of it in the Book of Jubilee.
I've heard an interesting theory that you might like. So that rock with the inscription, I've heard somebody speculate, could that have been Göbekli Tepe?
Well, it could have been because the more I went down that rabbit hole, the more I saw that a lot of the ancient sites, Mount Moriah in Jerusalem has an interesting legend similar to it. It's the Freemasons have held this legend
Hmm.
from way back when. Um, it was, I think, when modern masonry was formed, it was formed out of an older order.
Yeah.
These orders go back to the Greeks and the Egyptians. And that knowledge was given to the modern Freemasons, and it's about sites like Göbekli Tepe and Mount Moriah beneath Jerusalem is said to be where these some of the giants apparently knew that judgment was coming, and they
Interesting.
buried them slash the Watchers inscribed knowledge into tablets and into stone and buried it certain places around the earth.
Hmm.
And Göbekli Tepe has been mentioned as a possibility. There's another legend that pertains to beneath Egypt, the area beneath Egypt was another area where they put
Okay.
information. Um, and then there's wherever this was that, wherever Canaan was, he went to the land of Canaan. So there's a couple of these myths is about point. Now
Yeah.
I'll say that this is not Bible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is legend, and but there's a lot of, it's not just like secret society legend. Like this is in Jewish legend as well, that this is kind of what happened. They buried knowledge, and it was reconnected with after the flood by the sons of Ham. Like Nimrod was the son of Ham, the guy who built Babylon. He
Yeah.
got that knowledge from somewhere.
I know it almost kind of makes you wonder, did in that learning of this knowledge open some kind of portal to become a Nephilim? I don't know.
I know. I've thought about that too. Yeah. Yeah, something's going on with that.
Because doesn't it say,
Yeah.
it says Nimrod became a mighty man.
I know. I know, right?
So like, did he turn into one? Did he come in contact with something that transformed him?
Right. It's like, was there like an occult recipe for for this,
Mhm.
like some sort of ritual that they could engage with to make themselves, I don't know. I've thought about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't think about some of this stuff in modern terms. Like, it sounds crazy to us, but that's because we live in a modern world with AC being pumped down on us. And, we
Yeah.
don't even, people don't believe that there were dragons, even though the Bible talks about dragons. And some people still don't realize that the giants were real. Some people don't even believe in a spiritual realm. A lot of
Yeah.
this stuff has just been like, essentially like bred out of us and indoctrinated out of us. So if we could step out of that,
hmm
that's, I think that's where you start to see, like, okay, this was the further back you go, the more supernatural things were. So who knows what they were really working with to be able to
Yeah.
do some of this stuff,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah, it is. It is. Let's get back into Arkansas
Yeah.
and what you found and where this has led you to your backyard.
Yeah. So with
Missouri. I'm sorry,
Missouri, no,
Missouri.
you're
Yeah.
fine. Oh, they're kind of one and the same.
Right there, right? Aren't you right near the border too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Springfield is near the border, right?
Yeah, it is.
That area?
Well, and the Ozarks, technically, half of the Ozarks is in southern Missouri, and then the other half is northwest Arkansas, with a little portion of it in Oklahoma and Kansas. But I meant the Ozark primarily makes up almost half of Arkansas and half of Missouri.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really is a 50-50 when you talk about Arkansas. I mean, when you talk about Ozarks. But anyway, so what got me to wanting to find this stuff here is I'd love to go to all these different megalithic sites. I'd love to go to the pyramids of Giza. I'd love to go to see the megaliths down in Peru, or the Aztec and Mayan ruins down in Mexico. I just don't have that kind of luxury right now. I met my wife. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I have a fourth on the way who's going to be here in a month, actually. Um, with all,
Congratulations.
thank you. With all of life going on, I don't have the money, the means, or the necessities to go anywhere. So I wanted to look locally because, as we talked, I believe they were seafaring. And if they were seafaring, that means they went all over the place. Like, I don't think they were just contained to the promised land. I don't think there's lore of giants all over the world. So if there's lore of giants all over the world, then chances are at one point there might have been giants all over the world. It's that simple. So that really got me interested to look in my backyard. Um, came in contact with or came in touch with Fritz Zimmerman's work. I mean, he's done a lot of work pertaining to the Ohio River Valley, but he has that book, Ancient Apocalypse. No, not Ancient Apocalypse. I'm sorry. What is it? The Encyclopedia of North American Giants. He has a couple of articles in there that pertains to Missouri. Well, One in particular pertains to Springfield, Missouri. And I'm like, well, I got to find this. So that really got me on a journey of getting into the library, looking at old records, old plat maps, old county history books, and newspaper archives to find information pertaining to this article that I found in Fritz Zimmerman's book. So, what the article talks about, and of course, his book doesn't really go into much detail. It just, it's just a collection of all the different newspaper articles. I mean, he goes into some detail with them, but this one in particular, he did not. So I wanted to kind of bridge that gap. I wanted to hone in specifically on this one article. Well, by looking at it, I found there was more than just this one article. There was a whole plethora of things found by the guy that is mentioned in this article. In the article, it talks about a Sterling Price Newberry, who was an amateur archaeologist here in the 1930s. He seemed to be the most active between 1932 to 1936 here in the Springfield area. But in 1935, this was the article that attracted my attention. He found a 7-foot skeleton that was buried near the James River in a burial mound near the Holman Ranch. Well, thing about this area, I had to kind of get into archives, find out where this Holman Ranch was at, and start dissecting all that information. Anyway, let me go back to 7-foot skeleton. There was also 7 other skeletons that were buried with this 7-foot skeleton.
Oh yeah, so in the article that you caught your eye, it was Fritz found the article, caught your eye, and in the article it has skeletons mentioned, and one of them is a giant.
7 foot, yeah. So I know the jury's kind of out on if 7 foot's that big or not.
Sure.
I mean, I'm just gonna say this: if you've seen a 7-foot person walking in Walmart who's proportionate, and not just a tall, lanky person, it's gonna catch everyone's eye. Even someone who's tall and lanky, it would catch everyone's eye.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But
I had a roommate in college who was 6'7".
yeah,
And he couldn't walk through normal doors, even at
no,
6'7". Yeah, seven's big, and like I'll say this about the 7-footer. You're right. There's debate about this. There were a lot of these found, so it was this statistically something was going on. It wasn't just like a random thing for these people to be every now and again for somebody to be 7 or 8 foot. So there's that, but also like I think what happened was like throughout time they just got shorter and shorter. The gene got weaker. So these 7-foot giants, still call them giants. I think they were like descendants of giants that were probably much taller throughout the ages.
And that's kind of what I align with that view as well. Like it was a more modern wash water. It may have been 1/8 Nephilim. Who knows?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But it was still tall enough that he was buried in a very significant way because like I said, he was buried with 7 other skeletons, and they were buried to a line like a cross, where one was laying north-south, and then they buried another regular size skeleton on top of the 7-footer laying east-west, to where a bird eye view looking down, it formed the cross. Not only did they bury the 2 like that, but they buried 2 more in the same pattern directly above those 2, and then 2 more on top, and then 2 more on top. So you had 8 skeletons buried aligning like a cross, bird eye view down. Newberry said in the crook of the arm of the 7-footer, there was a stone sacrificial bowl. And he believed that may have been used in the ritual because those other 7 skeletons that were buried with the 7-footer, Newberry really believed that they were sacrificed to serve this 7-foot skeleton in the next life.
Yeah. Those sacrificial bowls were a big thing in the ancient world. There were shallow bowls. In fact, a guy just found a piece over, I'll have to look it up, but it was an old Roman site. and it was the Romans had depicted a stone. They had a little stone pillar propped up with a spirit on it, and the spirit was holding a cornucopia in one arm and one of these little bowls in the other arm. It was sacrificial, it was sacrificial iconography for the type of sacrifice they were doing right there on that site. I just want to throw it in to add to your story that, yeah, these people were using these sacrificial bowls for this type of thing. It
Wow.
was prevalent from what I can tell.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, I think I've seen other articles with stone bowls as well. So what's interesting too, and this is not in my book, but I actually recently watched an interview on End Times Production Podcast. Timothy Alberino went on there and he was talking about some of his research. I believe it was in Sardinia. Speaking of Rome, did you happen to watch that or not?
No, I'll
So
have to see it. I'll have to check that out.
he was talking, I guess this was about, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago when he was doing this research. But he interviewed a guy. I'm sure this gentleman is passed now. But at the time, the guy was 101. And this guy was talking about when he was younger, like I'm 20s, 30s, maybe 40s. He was doing work in a field, him and some friends. And as they're working, they unearth 8-foot skeletons. 2 8-foot skeletons, actually, that are aligned like a cross in a crisscross pattern. So I mean, I haven't added that portion to my book, and I probably won't. It might just be something I verbally say in these podcasts. But when I heard that, I'm like, holy crap! I mean, you're looking at thousands of miles apart from from the Ozarks, Missouri, to Sardinia on the other side of the world, and you have two burial patterns that are similar. Both include skeletons of abnormally large size, especially for today, but especially for the prehistoric world. I mean, that's not a coincidence whatsoever.
No, and I'll add to it and say I think that those island cultures featured groups of people who were definitely seafaring.
Yeah,
Whether we're talking about Crete, Malta, Cyprus, or Sardinia. Sardinia is an island, right?
yeah, it is.
Yeah. All those groups of people, if you study, they all had connections to like Minoans and Phoenicians or Kefs or Keftu. And they were seafaring cultures, and they all had very similar what I would categorize as like a Nephilim religion,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. So, yeah, I
They
mean, that
had the
was,
boats. These are the people who had the boats. The people who crossed the bodies, who had the bowls,
yeah.
had the boats. Yeah,
So
and had the giants.
in that crossing, I meant, was that burial? I mean, could that have started on the other side of the world, and that idea was then traveled over here to mid-Missouri?
Mhm.
Over the course of centuries, I meant millennia, however long it was. But I don't know. I just thought that that was very interesting, and I'm sure the crisscross pattern. And you mentioned something actually about the X being an ancient symbol. I'm wondering if that has something to do with the X as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah. Do you want to get into that?
if you want, yeah, that's fine.
Let's circle back to that one because that's a rabbit hole.
Okay, that's fine.
I want to talk about the X, but I think it will derail where we're at right now if we do,
Yeah,
because
that's
there's a
fine.
lot of stuff I want to talk with you about with that.
So anyway, so they found that in 1935. Well, really getting into like the newspaper archives and type in Sterling Newberry, this was not the only out of place discovery he made in this area. In 1932, there's a site just north of Springfield called what's it called? It's called Fulbright Springs area. It's one of the I think it's also a water reserve for Springfield, but it was one of the locations that was settled by the Fulbright family, who was one of the first pioneer families to the area. Anyway, there is a water station there that is probably at least 100 years old. And just north of that, there is a hill. On this hill, Newberry found two burial mounds. And it was on the west side of the hill. And the article mentions that so that way when the sun was setting, they would be facing the sun. So right there, you're looking at sun, possibly sun worship. So there was two mounds. One had just a single burial, and this article doesn't mention anything about the size of these skeletons. But I still think these are Nephilim in origin just because of other characteristics. So first off, you had the one that he called it the Indian chieftain. The skull was painted red. It was just a single individual burial. Just south of that, there was another mound where there was seven skeletons that were buried, aligned like the spokes on a wheel. And I think the heads were facing in and the feet were facing out. This is not the first time I've heard this kind of practice where they're buried like the spokes on a wheel. I don't know if that represents some kind of sun worship, cardinal directions. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I've seen that too. I have an article about a pyramid that was found beneath a lake in Utah.
okay. And they were
It's
buried in a circle like that?
Yeah, the archaeologist went into found his way into the pyramid and found giants in there, and they were buried like that. And that was his exact words. They had their heads together and their bodies were splayed out as to replicate like the spokes of a wheel in modern terms. Yeah.
That's crazy. So yeah, because I know in Fritz Zimmerman's book in 1920 in Indiana, I can't remember the city, but or what city was near, there was another burial mound that was unearthed where there was eight different skeletons aligned like the spokes on a wheel, and one of the skeletons was like 8 or 9 foot tall. So another similar burial practice found 400 or 500 miles apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this about that account I just mentioned. I think it's worth noting. I went back and pretty much validated that one.
Really?
Yeah. I did a lot of homework on that one.
Uh-huh.
And I think I validated that really happened and that
Interesting.
everything was true. So yeah, that I think that was a real burial site that was found
Huh.
in Utah where they had the bodies laid like that.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a connection between the cross burial and the spoke burial, but
Yeah.
a lot of similar burial practices, and a
Yeah.
lot of them involving pretty big freaking dudes.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I think that the different, I think they just had their different reasons for why they laid the bodies the way they would lay them. I think it may have been a status thing. It may have been
Oh
where
yeah,
you're at on the totem pole, like, between farmer to shaman, whatever your role was, or if you were even an aide to the king, because they
Hmm.
did have kings. Even Dr. Greg Little talks about that. Yeah. Yeah. Even they had kings. That's what we're seeing now with all these sites in America. They had
Yeah,
royalty, and the royalty are usually or often times they're the taller ones. They're the giants.
yeah,
They're the people who are ruling over them. So I think they had reasons for why they laid the bodies out. Another burial um uh thing that I've seen is like they'll bury the people in a sitting position facing the rising sun. I've seen that one as well too. And that seems to be like a warrior burial.
yeah. Which this is a side note. So I am working on a second book, but I found a reference to I think it was 1891 that there was a gentleman named William Reese that he had a burial mound on his property, and this is in Webster County, which is probably 30 miles northeast of Springfield, Missouri. Well, he unearthed a skeleton. No, some gentleman, his name was something Horton. He came and he did some excavations on a mound on the property of William Reese, and he found inside this burial mound a chamber where the skeleton was facing the east. But there was also two canine skeletons that was facing the entrance of, I'm sorry, that was facing, because I think there was like a little entrance that he found as well that would have been covered up.
Hmm.
Um, and they were facing the entrance, which was also facing the east as well,
Hmm.
which I hadn't really done as much research into that. I'm kind of saving that for book two.
Yeah.
Um, but
And you know, and a lot of these sites too that maybe aren't even burial sites, like your the stone chambers. There's some in Vermont and New York State. They're all over, you know,
mhm,
Massachusetts. The stone chambers, a lot of those have solstice alignments to the front door, to the entrance.
yeah,
Um, there's there's stone chambers and there's root cellar, or they call them root cellars, right?
yeah.
A lot of those have those same or have alignments with the front door as well. Like everything was done sort of astronomically for a lot of these people.
And that's what's pretty interesting about this Fulbright area. So you had, like I said, and you can go there now. Like it's funny because it is a bike path now. I mean, it's owned by the city. So you can go in the wooded area and you can see the remains of where the Indian chieftain burial mound was at and where it's been excavated on the top. And then just south of that, you see where the Spoke Mound burial was at. And what's funny is just, probably 20 or 30 feet to the west, to the east, in between both of them, there's a cave entrance called Keyhole Cave. It's a sinkhole cave, but that also brings me to, in the same area, the Fulbright Springs area, there is another cave called the Devil Slide Cave. It's on private property, so not anybody can just go look at it. But in there, and I've watched the video. There's a guy that does. He's local. He's a local splunker. He goes through all kinds of different caves all over and records it. Well, he went in there and found. I mean, there's a lot of modern writing in there, but he found what some believe, and I think this is probably the lore, that could be Viking writing.
Yeah, runes maybe.
Runes. Yeah, Viking
Yeah.
runes. Was interesting is when I was messing around on my LiDAR, I lined up where that Indian chieftain with the red skull, the location of there, with the mouth of the cave, it's a solstice alignment.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
that cave's natural, but that Indian chieftain was specifically placed there for a reason. And I think it was to line up with that cave.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. And over in Oklahoma, again, like you're not that far from Oklahoma, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay. The stuff that was found in Oklahoma is off the charts. And it includes Viking stuff.
The um the Havanir runestones.
Okay. I don't know that one, I don't think, but I
It's
know about the Heavener. Oh, Heavener runestones. That's
Heavener,
what you're
Heavener.
talking.
Yeah,
Well, you might be saying it correctly, actually. So,
I think I've gotten scolded for calling it the Havanir.
okay.
So no, it's Heavener. You're right. It's
Yeah.
Heavener.
Okay. So that's the Heavener Havanir runestones is one. There's another one called the Shawnee runestone
Yep,
as
I've heard of
well.
that one.
And you know that those are interesting when we talk about the X's because the X's show up on both of those.
So, I mean, I have a prevailing theory, and this is just my theory. I wonder is could some Vikings have been a type of Nephilim?
Yeah, I've wondered that too. Um,
Like, and that's something that I've talked to friends about who I mean who are more studied on this stuff than I am. But I mean, it would explain, like, I mean, could the idea of Vikings, could that just kind of be an idea we created? Maybe, and maybe not. Maybe, I mean, there are some that were all, there could have been Vikings, but could there have been very similar peoples?
this gets into where did they come from, and there's a lot of speculation. Some people. So when you get into rune stones, those were being used by the Germans. and as well as the Norse. So there's this
Okay.
there's some thought that the Vikings maybe cross-pollinated, as it were, with Germans or with Celts.
Okay.
And I think with the Celts that were over here, I think there's significant reason to think the Celts were over here. They seem to have the Nephilim practice
Okay.
embedded into their religious practices. Frankly, their occult practices. So it would suggest that they were aligned with the Nephilim belief system, at least. And there seems to be some crossover with the Vikings as well.
Interesting.
I mean, the Vikings could have been following an older route too
And they could have, yeah.
that they got from Phoenicians and Canaanites. I think
Okay.
there's just a lot of crossover that we just don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like that whole like that Potomac, or I always forget what it's called, the steel that I showed earlier that was found, the Freemasonic looking relic from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And you realize that this is like, these are like different people groups that are represented in one thing here. These
Mhm.
people were, doing what people do today, and they were mixing tribes essentially. When
Yeah.
you've got Baal, Ra, and Punic Iberian all represented in one belief, and
Yeah.
and possibly even some lost tribe intermingling in that as well. It gets confusing, but I think it's because these people
The
were
Dane.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's because these people were like tribe of Dan. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So I've heard that could the Danes have been the tribe of Dan,
yeah.
which I haven't really looked much into it. I thought it was
Well,
interesting.
that's I think that's what that princess Tia Telfite was. It said she's from the tribe of Dan, but that
Hmm.
they were, because the a lot of the Hebrews went to Egypt,
Hmm.
and some of them became royalty. There's a whole Egyptian royal bloodline that was Jewish.
Huh.
They are called the Hyksos dynasty.
Okay.
So there were Hebrews, lost tribes essentially, that went to Egypt, got bred in with the Egyptians, got into royalty, left, potentially representing the tribe of Dan still, and married up with Scythians on top of all that, and then came over and started and settled places like Scotland.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things happening here, and it's a lot. It's like a headache to try to explain this to people, but this is because we've not been told our true history.
Yeah. And I think
So
that's
the,
where,
the the fun part is having conversations like this where we're being open-minded and we're
Mhm.
throwing these options on the table, because frankly, a lot of these options might very well be true.
Yeah, it could be complete bogus or it could be true.
Could be,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So you just, you're right. You just gotta have to be
This is the fun
open.
part, though. I think is going back and finding out what really happened and putting the pieces together, because
Yeah.
that's what we're going to have to do.
And
At this point,
exactly.
that's what we're going to have to do. So,
Exactly.
some of the stuff I've said today, I know like people are going to be like, I've never heard that before, but you got to, I'm not just coming up with it. Like, this is coming out of research and reading about ancient peoples and going to places off the beaten path to read about ancient peoples too,
Yeah.
because you gotta dig deeper these days, because what they sell you is not the truth. So
Yeah. No, I can
it's
definitely
hard to
tell you,
find.
you're very well studied. You're
Well, I
very well
mean,
studied.
I'm interested in the subject. We'll say it
Mhm.
like that. Yeah. But I think Missouri though has a lot to offer for sure in the way of this. And it's not just Oklahoma and all that. Did you want to finish up your Newberry, or do you want to jump to the X some?
No, yeah, I can finish up my Newberry stuff.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
good story, I think, the way
yeah.
you've found all
So,
this.
um, also, so this Fulbright area, you had the solstice alignment between this cave and where this Indian chieftain was buried. Went back into an old history book of this history of Springfield from 1914, and there was this gentleman named Dr. E.M. Shepard, and he was a geologist professor at a local university. He studied a lot of like karst topography and the cave systems in Missouri and stuff like that, but he also studied a lot of ancient civilization pertaining to the Ozarks as well. Well, it's interesting because he mentions in this book from 1914 that he literally says a couple of years ago that my attention was drawn to a cave. I can't remember the township range but I've learned how to do like the township section and range on those old township maps. So I was able to pinpoint it where the specific location he's talking about, and it is actually in that Fulbright area. It's about a mile away from where the Indian chieftain was buried. It's kind of in between the Devil's Slide Cave. It's kind of in between where Shepherd found and this Indian chieftain. Well, he found a cave, and in this cave there was strange bones, and that's all it says is strange bones. And there were several thigh bones that had been broken in half where bone marrow was extracted. What's interesting is looking into some of the facts about Lovelock Cave with the red-haired giants. They also found thigh bones that are long bones that had been broken in half where bone marrow was extracted. I think that in that cave points to some kind of cannibalistic. I even think about. I'm a firm believer they put some truth in movies. You know, you have you ever seen Lord of the Rings? That part where the ogre or the orc breaks the bone in half and he's guzzling down the marrow. I really think that is a depiction of cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
And Lovelock Cave points to that because they were literally the red-haired cannibalistic giants. So I thought it was interesting how all in this area, you have a spoke mound burial, you have a cave that aligns up with this burial to be a solstice alignment, and then you have another cave in the area that was found where they had bones broken in half, pointing to cannibalism.
Yeah.
All characteristics of Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And I heard you too talking about this story on another show, and didn't you trace it down? Like you got in touch with Newberry's grandson, and
oh yeah,
you found that this was weren't they finding this stuff in a mound essentially?
yeah.
The bones were found in a mound, right?
No, I'm sorry, a cave. The ones that were broken in half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the ones broken in half were found in a cave.
Oh,
yeah,
okay, I got you.
In a cave, sorry.
Yeah. No, I added the mound in because I heard you tell another story about a grave site that was near a mound, I believe.
Are you talking about my little people, the little people story?
Maybe it was something you were talking about to do with that. Yeah.
Because I did go on Blurry Creatures and I specifically mentioned the little people on Blurry Creatures.
Yeah.
Because, that's right up their alley.
Yeah, I love that stuff too.
Cryptids and little people.
Yeah. No, that you quickly, it didn't take me long to come across those encounters too with the little people. I think that was really a thing. But I think all in all, like as far as your research area goes, so you've got the Newberry farm, right? Is that or
the break farm?
Break farm that's associated with the Newberry
yes
account. And then you've got this area where you found an X as well, right?
Yes. So that is all. So Newberry found that 7-foot skeleton off the James River. Well, James River, it's in this whole township, there's at least 6 or 7 miles of the James River. And all along it, there are very interesting anomalies, especially when you look on LiDAR. I found caves, you find mounds. Well, I have a friend named Kent. I think I mentioned Kent earlier. He lives off the James River, pretty close to where the Brake family property was at. But he's about, I don't know, 7 or 8 miles up the river. But when we were on his property, we found some rock art, which I thought was interesting. And even next to the rock art, you find what looks like excavated burial mounds. Ken actually even wonders, and it's hard to find records of it, but if that some of those burial mounds could that have been some of the ones excavated by Newberry as well? Because there was a lot of stuff Newberry still excavated that didn't make the papers.
Because he
So
was
any
into archaeology, right? Like that
Yeah,
was it like he treated it like a pastime or a hobby?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was his hobby. Um, but anyway, so we're looking on his property and I see a boulder that has a bunch of cupules, which cupules are, I mean, it's like the oldest form of rock art, and it's universal. I mean, it's been found all over the place. I mean, it literally is just circular indentions into a rock. But then there was another rock face just a little bit north of that that literally has an X with a square around it.
Yeah.
Someone told me that it's natural. I'm not buying it. I mean, I sent you the
No,
picture of it.
you sent me the picture. I looked at it, and I would even go so far as to say that they possibly did more work to the rockets. Like they may have chiseled out that block, that the square.
Hmm.
They may have chiseled the square out and then put the X on it.
Yeah.
Or it's just the square might be natural, but the X, it looks like it's been. I mean, I would say that you found something there because that X is. You mentioned it might be connected to the Celts, right?
I had just said that it looks like a Celtic cross.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I've seen the X associated with the ancient
okay.
Celts, so that symbol, just a preliminary on that. I've done some work looking into it. You find it in medieval grimoires as a rune. Um, like I said before, the Germans are related to the Celts, and it's long been suggested that the Celts and the Vikings meshed, right?
Yeah.
So there's like we were saying earlier, there's potential overlap with all these people, especially the further back you go. But
Mm,
I think you find it in the grimoires in the medieval times. But I think that's just a clue that it goes back further and it's associated with esoteric magic tradition
interesting.
and it's just survived through grimoires, right? But it's an image that some have suggested is connecting the above to the below,
Hmm.
like an as above so below. So it's got all this esoteric stuff baked into it, and which this is all false religion, pagan stuff. I'll add,
Yeah.
but I had to look into this to figure out what's going on with this symbol, right? And
Yeah.
before the grimoires, I found that it goes back to the Elder Futhark, which is a Germanic tribe
Okay.
set of runes. They would group them into sections of 8 that might indicate some goddess worship. But anyways, it was found over here as it pertains to what you found there in the woods of Missouri. It was found elsewhere over here. The X was, and it's found on the Kensington runestone as well, up in Kensington, Minnesota.
Okay.
That seems to be a Templar thing.
Hmm.
In which case, the Templars used a language called it's a witch's language, and I'll try and remember what they called it. Uh, it starts with a T. I'll try to remember it in a minute. So I think they were using it in terms of an esoteric language as well, a magical language. It's also on it's on the runestone, like near the Oklahoma, the Spiro Mounds, the Heavener. It's associated with all that.
Okay.
It's on that Shawnee runestone. So there's all these runestones out there in Oklahoma that have this X on it. And I think you're probably in a place between Cahokia and Spiro. So there would have been trade
I'm
between.
smack dab in the middle of it.
Yep, you're on a trade route probably of some sort between those two civilizations. So um, you've got. I'm trying to tell you all this because I think you might have something. Like I would say, keep looking into the X, man, because
Okay.
it probably signifies something. You also
Interesting.
have the bull symbolism that gets brought into this. There were Celts in America doing Egyptian practice who were using the X and the bull. And this X is a deep rabbit hole, man. Like seriously,
Uh-huh.
that's why I wanted to wait before I talked to you. I wanted to wait till later in the show because I didn't want to derail
Yeah.
you because this is
Yeah.
such a deep rabbit hole. It's like you've got the Oklahoma bull relic that was found, and they think it goes back to the Celts, and they think that they were coming over here and doing this ancient form of magic that involves bull slaughter,
Okay.
and the X seems to be tied up with that. And I would say that it's Apis from the Bible. It's Jeremiah 46, where God says, "Why has Apis fled? Why has your bull not stood? Because the Lord has thrust him down."
Hmm.
It's what God does in the Bible. He over and again, he claims victory over the occult
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the little G gods. But these people worship the Apis bull, and that Apis bull shows up in Oklahoma. There's a cave there in Oklahoma too called the Anubis Cave
Okay.
that has a bull. So all this is involved with the X somehow.
Huh.
So there were people in your region using that X, engaged in Egyptian and Celtic practice.
That's interesting. I'm about to go back and rewatch this to, to capture everything. That's very intriguing.
I
Wow.
would say, I almost didn't even bring this up on the show because it's so much to throw. Like I know I just like dumped it's like I just iced the coach or something on this thing,
Yeah.
but but it's a lot to just dump on people, is what I'm saying. But I think you have something, and I would say take a metal detector back and check that site out.
Okay. Interesting.
Just see. There might because they may have buried stuff out there.
Hmm.
That's another thing that kind of that might be associated with the X. But anyway, I think it's cool that you found the X because it's clearly it's tied into all this other deeper stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's tied into the practices of the ancient people that were here.
And I meant it all would have been, especially because it's all on the same river too, for 7 miles. So I meant it all would have been the same civilization.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I meant,
And the Ogham script too ties in with it. I don't know if you've looked much into Ogham.
no, my friend Brent has.
Yeah.
I hadn't really looked as much into that, but
Yeah.
um,
Oh, and there's one other thing too. Woodstock, Vermont. They found a little uh they found a relic that has an X on it. I'll show you a picture of it right here. See that?
yes.
That was found in Woodstock, Vermont. And this is associated with the goddess temple here in America. It says
So there's a lot of feminine divine in this too.
yeah, yes. There usually is with all this. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
The inscription reads MSFD with an X on the button-shaped stone below, interpreting this as measure of distance 11 Celtic leagues or Roman miles. We instituted a search for another settlement at the indicated radial distance. Eventually, John Williams located the ruined temples at a place apparently intended lying at a distance of 10 miles, i.e., 11 Roman miles. Basically, what he's saying, this is from Barry Fell's book, America BC. They took the X and looked into it and thought it meant, this is telling you that there's something 10 miles up the road to look
Wow.
at. It was an indicator for this temple, apparently. That's why I say when you find an X in America, look into it.
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But sorry, no
no,
more
you're
X for me. No more X talk.
no, you're fine. Well, no, it's just interesting because I mean this whole that whole area along the James River, it still pertains to Newberry and the stuff he found because really this is like the last major find he had. 2 months after he found the 7-foot skeleton, he found a cave nearby that had what he believed was Aztec style pottery.
Mm-hmm.
One was, and there was three that really stuck out to him the most. One was a bowl that had 5 points on the bottom. When you turned it over, It was a star. Then you had another bowl that had a panther head, but the rim of the bowl was a serpent body that morphed into a panther head. So it was a zoomorphic effigy bowl. Then the last one was a bowl that had an owl head, which I thought was very interesting because I know when I went on the Biblical Hitman, Stephen made reference to the owl being feminine divine
Yeah,
worship.
the star might be as well. So
Really
if the star has 5 points, it's Venus, and the owl typically
interesting.
the owl is going to be Athena, Minerva, possibly Lilith.
Huh.
And if it's Athena, I don't even want to open that door up right now, but
No, you're fine.
Athena, there's a lot of weird Athena stuff happening over here as well,
Okay.
with the ancient world. Yeah, Athens, Georgia, and
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
there's a statue of Athena in Nashville that's 48 feet right on top of an area where they were excavating ancient sites. There's a lot of weird stuff with Athena. So
Huh.
it possibly gets into like the Greek people coming over here as well. But
Interesting.
I don't know that that's what it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
the owl is Minerva, Athena, or Lilith usually.
Interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I looked at your area, man, and it's uh, I basically what I did was I went back and looked at all the articles that I found pertaining to
Okay.
Missouri,
Okay.
and I looked up all these places on a map because you told me where basically kind of where you told me where you found the X, so I looked at
Hmm.
that area, and basically all in all the places that I have creates a massive circle around your research area around Missouri. It's a big
Okay.
broad circle, but it's all this a lot of stuff I have in Missouri. So I can honestly say I went through and looked at all my Missouri accounts. They encircle your research area, and these accounts literally include ancient cities, tombs, giants,
Mm.
and relics.
Yeah.
So I think that you're surrounded by this kind of stuff, you know,
Yeah.
as you well know. And I think too, like if your state touches the Mississippi River, let's be honest, you're going to be near a mecca of the ancient world because that was their highway through North America.
Yeah.
And that's not just me. That's, I've done a lot of research into this, and it's like people have acknowledged just before me, well before me. That's the researched opinion of H. Breckinridge, even who had the ear of Thomas Jefferson. He indicated, and he talked about Missouri, and he talked about the Mississippi in that area. He's like, that's the hot spot. This
Hmm.
was like the the Mecca, if you
Yeah.
will,
And I
of ancient
believe
America.
I believe that Cahokia was like the epicenter.
Yeah.
Well, and even St. Louis. I mean,
Oh yeah. It
I'm
was.
actually
No,
I was
go
say
no, go ahead.
I'm kind of looking more into St. Louis. I don't know where all the mounds were. I mean, there's only one mound that's still standing, and there used to be 40 mounds in the St. Louis area alone that have all been leveled to build the
Right.
city,
Right.
which is also interesting because as I'm also looking at it, St. Louis is a supposedly very highly haunted area.
Yeah.
And there's at least 20, 22, 23 places where there's supposed hauntings. And I kind of wonder how close are these hauntings to what used to be these mound sites.
Yeah. I think they're connected. I'll show you something real quick from the St. Louis area that's up on a cliff face.
Okay.
And by the way, St. Louis used to be called Mound City. That's what it was
Hmm.
known as. There's still a big boulder out there that has a plaque on it that says Mound City. I have a picture of that. But I looked into St. Louis some. Here's something that was found nearby St. Louis. It's right up the Mississippi.
Yes, I've seen that.
And it's been colored in modern time, but this was I think it's called the Piazzi bird. But it's got the antlers. Some would say that that might be Cernunnos.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's more with the I think it might be this, a representation of this, which is Assyrian Iranian
Huh.
Lamuzu, Lamazu. Pazuzu, Lamazu,
Yeah.
right? It's I think it's the same thing. I think that this came from the Middle East, and
Interesting.
that's why it shows up there. And this one's interesting too. Missouri Wonder. This is
Mo
an article I have
Mo
from it.
Moberly, where they found the buried underground city with giants in there.
Yeah, you know about this one?
Yeah, I do. But I mean, you look it up and they say it was all a hoax.
It's not a hoax. This one's
No.
not a hoax. Nah,
No.
nah. Here we go. Here, let me read this one for people. This one's pretty cool. The city of Moberly is stirred up over the discovery of a wonderful buried city, which was discovered at the bottom of a coal shaft, 380 feet deep, which was sunk near the city. A hard and thick stratum of lava arches the buried city, the streets of which are regularly laid out and enclosed by walls of stone. Streets. So it had streets that
Hmm.
were enclosed by walls of stone, which is cut and dressed in a fairly good, although rude style of masonry. A hall, 330 by 100 feet, was discovered, wherein were stone benches and tools of all descriptions for mechanical service. Further search disclosed statues and images made of composition closely resembling bronze, lacking luster. I wonder if we're talking about copper, but I'll keep going here. A stone fountain was found. So the city, it says a stone fountain was found situated in a wide court or street. So the city had its own like courtyard, sounds like, with a stone fountain, and from it a stream of perfectly pure water was flowing, which was found to be strongly impregnated with lime. Lying beside the foundation were found portions of the skeleton of a human being. Now, let me just say this. Notice they don't say anything about it being a giant, but listen to what they say next. The bones of the leg measured, and the femur was 4.5 feet. A 4.5 foot femur. That's not normal. I think normal femurs are what, 18 inches for
I think
normal
so.
people? Something like that.
Yeah.
So this is a 4 foot femur. So they're not telling you it's a giant, but they're kind of telling you it's a giant.
I mean,
Showing that,
that's more than double.
yeah. Showing that when alive, it was 3 times the size of an ordinary man and possessed of a wonderful muscular power and quickness. The head bones had separated in 2 places. The implements found embraced bronze and flint knives, stone and granite hammers, metallic saws of rude workmanship, but proved metal and others of similar character. They are not so highly polished, nor so accurately made as those now finished by best mechanics, but they show skill and evidence of an advanced civilization that was very wonderful. The searching party spent 12 hours in the depths and only gave up explorations because of the oil in their lamps being low. No end to the wonders of discovery was reached. The facts above are given and are vouched for by Mr. David Coates, the recorder of the city of Moberly, and Mr. George Keating, the city marshal, who were in the exploring party. So, and I love it when they name the people from the city who were a part of the,
Yeah.
I think that shows a lot of, you can usually go back and find out that those people were real. Every time I've ever looked at these articles and I've looked at the people mentioned, they're always real people.
Oh, and I like going to the point to where it was found on Francis Knox Collins' property, and I can go look on, I mean, you probably can't see it on my phone, but I can go look at plats and I find on the plats where he owned. So you can almost even pinpoint it down to the approximate location.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's really knowing how to get in there and looking at these old plat maps to find these locations.
Which one are you referring to right now? Which account are you referring to?
So this Francis Knox Collins, he is the it was on his property they found it was the coal, that's where the coal shaft was on in Moberly.
Oh, you've looked into this one?
Yeah, I have.
Nice.
Yeah, I have.
Tell me about it. This is one of my favorite articles, man.
Well, so I haven't really it's been a while. So it's more of just me gathering stuff and I haven't really delved into it much, but my next book I'm really wanting to write about all of these sites around Missouri. Um,
Okay.
Not going as detailed as I did with the Newberry stuff. I meant Newberry, I looked at individual accounts, almost every individual account he did. These, I want to just look at the story itself and get stuff related to the area, or try and find the area and keep it surface. I mean, a little depth, but just kind of still surface level.
Did you look into the one from Quincy, Illinois? See if I have that one. It's right on the if I think it's right on the other side of the river from you, from Missouri.
I've heard of it. I haven't
All
really looked
right.
into it.
Or wait, I'm sorry. Maybe it's on the Arkansas border.
So
I
what
don't
I thought, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll pull
What
it up.
what I thought was interesting about this Moberly one is so I looked for this Francis Knox Collins. He was the guy he found it on his property. Well, I looked at where his properties were at and in the township and range and section, and I compared it. I think I found another website that talks about where known mine shafts are at. And I believe on one of the areas where this Francis Knox Collins owned, there is a known mine shaft that's now closed up, which would most, if this underground city in Moberly is real, which I believe it is, that's probably the entrance. So
Yeah.
I'd have to do a little more digging into it, but
I got one I'm gonna show you. I don't know if I'll show it
okay,
on the show, but
okay,
it's not an article I have. It's an article that somebody else found. It's a YouTube guy, and it's interesting.
okay,
It's one that I think would be fun to track down, and it's in the Ozarks.
okay,
And in the article, they talk about a peak. There's all these caves, right?
uh-huh,
First, it starts off talking about this cave system, and it talks about how one of the caves is known to be 300 miles deep,
okay,
which is wild. That sounds like something out of Kentucky, like Mammoth Cave System stuff.
yeah,
But apparently, there's this place, the Ozarks, is full of these caves.
hmm,
So it talks about that. I'm trying to find the name of the area in the Ozarks, but I'll have to maybe look it up later. But anyway, it talks about they look at the caves, and then if I remember correctly, there's a mountain that they go up to that where the caves are at the base of. But they go up to the mountain and they find an indentation in the top of the mountain, kind of hidden there, almost like a volcano hole or something, right?
okay.
And then they find there's a this is some real Indiana Jones stuff, right? But they found that somebody had chiseled a staircase into this the going down into the interior of this hole at the top of this
That's
mountain.
that's in Bull Shoals Lake, I think.
Okay. And and
Was it a white marble staircase?
that's what it talks about, there being white marble. Yeah.
That's Bull Shoals.
Do you know about this site?
I watched something on it literally like 3 days ago.
What?
There's actually there's some videos on it.
We're gonna have to talk about this.
So I hadn't really I watched it. I didn't watch all of it, but
Were they basing it off of this old article?
I think so. So it's an AI video, but I think it's based off of that article.
Yeah, yeah. So they talk about how they descend down into the top of this mountain,
Hmm.
and they get down in there, and the way it's worded, it sounds like somebody has went in there and inlaid the place with white marble, and that there's a big throne room in there and all this other stuff.
We
So I looked a little bit more into it, and I found in the article it says it's 18 miles southeast of this town, and I have the town somewhere written down. I'll find it in a minute. But it's
Yeah,
right there in the middle of the Ozarks, and man, that would be a cool one to find if this,
I
if
think
it's
it's now
correct.
I think it's now buried under Bull Shoals Lake
You
if
think
it's
so?
real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So going back to the beginning of the episode, what we were
yeah,
talking about, the ancient sites being buried under the man-made lakes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that as unfortunate as that is, that would not surprise me.
Isn't that even the case for I recently found out Rockwall, Texas, isn't part of it buried under the lake in Rockwall, Texas? I don't know if
Yeah,
you've ever looked
yeah,
into Rockwall, Texas.
I did. That's on my list. That lake is on my list.
Okay.
It's right outside of Houston, I think, if I remember correctly.
Dallas probably, because
Dallas.
Rockwall is more north.
It's on, yeah. Um, I'm not gonna look it up right now, but yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was.
you're
I
fine.
think it's Dallas. I think it is Dallas, and yeah, there the lake that they put in there covers up part of Rockwall.
Yeah.
The Rockwall, yeah. And I looked when I was looking into that area too. I found
But
some other things that were
it's a natural
fascinating.
formation, right?
Oh, right, right. I see, and I don't think that that one's natural either.
I don't I don't either.
I saw a TV show where they supposedly tested it, and I saw the way they were testing it, and I didn't think that that was legit. They didn't they tested the stone itself. They didn't test the in between parts of the stone, and I don't want to get into it, but as like I'm suspicious of the test they did in the first place, and also in the TV show they're showing you these parts of the rock wall that look like they have stairs cut out of them, like for
Yeah.
giants, steps for giants, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It sounds like the fortified walls of Canaan.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, whenever you look into Rockwall, Texas, that's the first thing I think of, the fortified walls, the megalithic walls.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. I think that's why I think a lot of the people who were here in ancient America were from the Middle East. Um, they were. I think there was common practice for them to build the walled cities like you see in the Old Testament.
Hmm.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I even have a quote, man, about that. I'm gonna find it. This is worth finding. Let me, because it was a Native American
Hmm.
who had the memory of this place. It's Chief Rolling Thunder, 1857. He said, innumerable moons ago, a race of white men 10 feet high and far more rich and powerful than any white people now living, here inhabited a large range of country extending from the rising to the setting sun. Their fortifications crowned the summits of the mountains, protecting their populous cities situated in the intervening valleys. They excelled every other nation that flourished, either before or since. And he would go on to say, Chief Rolling Thunder would go on to say that the Great Spirit punished them and
Hmm.
wiped them out, leaving only their mounds on the tablelands.
Interesting.
I think he summed it up nicely with that one. I mean, I speculate that they were from the Middle East, uh,
Yeah.
but I think there were white, quote unquote, white people coming out of the Middle East too. Some of the Canaanites were said to be blonde haired, blue eyed, light skinned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you've got, well, the Kandahar giant,
Hmm.
right? I don't know if you've ever heard that story. Have you heard the real story of that? Like,
No, someone mentioned it to me the other day, and it sounds like it's about time for me to learn it.
well, okay. I I say the real story. I think the most legitimate version of the story is told by Tim Alberino.
In my brain now. No,
Because
I need to go and watch it.
he was, and he doesn't bust it out much. I think I've only heard him talk about this one time and where he laid it out because he was working in some capacity with Steve Quell when that
Hmm.
story got brought onto their desk. So
Okay.
he was a part of it. He like was there bearing witness to the whole thing as it unfolded. And what it was is there was a veteran who was obviously a part of this story, the Kandahar giant story. The veteran didn't come forward. His mom did. The guy didn't want to talk.
Uh-huh.
The mom kind of put him in a position. The mom was like, "Hey," I think she told Steve Quell, "You need to talk to my son.
Okay.
I know you guys talk about giants and Nephilim and all that stuff. You need to talk to my son." But the guy didn't want to talk. But anyway, I guess he got pressured into. Anyway, he talked to them. They finally got him to come and meet them in Montana or something. He would not go on camera unless they blurred it out.
Okay.
And they got the story out of him. And the story is that, yeah, he flew in. He was in the Air Force, but I think he was piloting a helicopter for him. And they flew him in to pick up the body. And the story is that the local unit of US military were monitoring this cave that they thought Al Qaeda was in or terrorists were in, because the local people were going up there and leaving offerings in front of the mouth of the cave. They thought that
Okay.
they were feeding the enemy. So that they sent some troops in to check it out, and none of the troops returned. They sent in a second wave, and that's when they said, the rumor is that they found the giant eating on these guys.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And that's when they killed him, and then they sent this guy in to airlift him out of there. And he said that they had him on a pallet. They had this, it was a giant humanoid on a pallet that was laying in the fetal position, and it was so big that his feet were hanging out from underneath the tarp, and that the feet were pale and they had red hair on them. It was either the feet or the hands. And the guy even walked by and like patted on the body through the tarp and said it was like pure muscle. And I'm just, I'm paraphrasing here from the story that Timothy Alberino tells, but that's the story. And they spent a lot of time trying to validate this as well. And I think what happened was, after this guy told them that initial story, they were able to go around and talk to two other people who were close to the story in the military who somehow validated it.
It's
So that's my best version of the story. But when he tells it, and the way he tells it, and just, I know him and his work, and Alberino is not the kind of guy that just makes things up for whatever reason. Like, I believe what he's saying is true.
Yeah, I agree. What's interesting though, you mentioned that they brought these locals were bringing food as offerings. It just strikes me as the similarities between that and how you hear about some of these people who are infatuated with Bigfoot, how they will also bring gifts and offerings to these Bigfoot creatures, I guess peace offerings.
Yeah.
So I just think it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and the giants were, like I think we stated before, associated with the bloodlines, and they were in a position of ruling over people.
Mm-hmm.
So they've long been associated with just the priesthood or the ruling class.
Yeah.
So if any of that filtered down through the ages, then it's like people are there's still like probably some sort of something embedded in the culture to where people think that they have to treat them as royals. That's I could see that as being a possibility.
Yeah.
As well. And again, like, we're going way outside of the comfort zone of the normal person with the Western mindset here.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about it. So this is going to sound like pure craziness to some people.
Yeah, it will.
But again, like, I got a working refrigerator and AC, and I don't have to live out in the elements, and I don't have to face a spiritual world or a spiritual realm very much. It's just the way things are these days. But things not used to not be like this, and things like the little people and spirits and jinn and demons and angels and all that. There was more. I think you were there was a time on this earth when you were confronted with the reality of that much more than you are today.
Yeah. And if anything, they're still here.
Yeah.
So could we in our Western world actually be at a massive disadvantage because we're not in tune or we don't believe in this kind of like we don't believe in this kind of stuff. That's all sci-fi. That's fake, you know?
Yeah. And I think we are. I think that's the detriment of our society today, in my opinion. And I think once you start to realize how things really are, and that there really is a spiritual realm and kind of how it operates and some of the mechanics of it, I think that helps you understand your Bible better
Yeah.
and understand the spiritual war that I talked about earlier better and all that. I think everything just makes a lot more sense. And like, because we're spiritual beings too.
Yeah.
We have spirits within us.
Yeah.
The body is just a shell for a spirit. We are a
Yeah.
spirit being, and I don't use that in the terms of the new age either.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
like we're like star seeds. I'm saying,
No.
we are spiritual beings created in the image of our creator.
Hmm.
So it's not just them. It's not just these Nephilim and watchers and all this. No, we're a part of this family as well.
Yeah.
We're an extension of that family, if you ask me. And I've got a book over there. It's called Black Elk Speaks. The
Uh-huh.
Native Americans knew about this.
Interesting.
They knew about the spirit realm and about the giants, and they had their version of. They knew about the little people.
Yeah.
Some of them talked about this Bigfoot like thing as well, that was a guardian of the forest and all this and that. But no, beyond all the cryptid stuff, they knew it was a spiritual realm regarding more like spirits.
Hmm.
And that book will blow your mind if you ever read it. If you ever want to go deep into like Native American folklore, read Black Elk Speaks, because he he grew up in an era, I think it was late 1800s or and into the 1900s, where his story was able to be written. But
Okay.
he was like a shaman or a medicine man or a healer of some sort. And those guys they quickly were, I guess you would say, contacted by the spirit realm at a young age. The guys who would go on to become shamans or healers. So it was part of his reality. And it was a part of their culture too, because his elders knew all about this too. So they're like, oh, we know what you had a vision. You met the spirit, our spirit being, I forget what the terminology they use, but our spirit elders. This is what you experience. Yeah, there's a spirit world here, and you're going to have to learn how to interact with that to become a healer. And it was nothing to them. It was just everyday life to them that this was how it was, you know. And I think that that's because they're a remnant of that old world they had more of a memory of it. They
Yeah.
were more in touch with it because they're not living in the modern cities with all the amenities and all that.
Yeah.
So.
That's interesting stuff, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I just I don't see it as being any different from what the Israelites in the Old Testament dealt with.
Yeah.
The terminology changes, I'm sure. And I'm not making a statement here on to whether or not this is right or wrong for the Native Americans to talk to spirits. I'm not even going there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if they're good or bad. I don't know what the deal is with that. But I think that the reality is that they're real, and that ancient peoples all over the globe, going way back, have had this connection with them, or at the very least have noticed that this is a thing way more than we notice with our Western mindset today.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
why don't tell since we're on the topic, why don't we finish it up with your little people story? That one's a good one.
Yeah.
Talking about the supernatural, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I was about to say it's getting pretty late, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
rolling it up, wrapping it up.
yeah. Let's wrap
Um,
it up.
so the little people, when I was doing my research for my book, um, I was able to get in contact with Sterling Newberry, one of his living grandchildren. Um, his grandson had never met his grandfather because Sterling passed in 1952 from a heart attack. So he passed before he could ever meet his grandson. Um, but his grandson I have shared a lot of the articles that I found, just trying to pick his brain, see if he knew anything. Unfortunately, the last person who would have known anything pertaining to, because I wanted to find where these artifacts went. A lot of them I found reference did go to the Smithsonian, and that's all you hear about them.
Mhm.
Um, but so I wanted to see if he knew anything like other details, just another avenue to try and find more information out about Newberry, because newspapers you can only go so far. Um, Unfortunately, the last person who would have known anything was Sterling Newberry Jr., who was Sterling Newberry's son. He died in 2015. So I'm 10 years late. Um, but the grandson, it's been cool being able to show him some of my research. I sent him my ebook of the ebook for him to look at. Um, but I come across an article from 1933 or 1930. It was like 1933 to 1934. Um, this was in between him going to Fulbright, but then also going to find the 7-foot skeleton off the James River. I found an article about this Harry Starlight and Sterling Newberry, how there was an altercation between the two. So all the article said was that in a old Native American burial ground near Fairgrove, Missouri, there was an altercation between Harry Starlight, who was a proclaimed Osage chieftain, and Sterling, Reverend Sterling Newberry. Um, the altercation happened between them. There was three other people that were there with them. They pulled Starlight off. Cops showed up. They arrested Starlight. They ended up letting Starlight go, and that was it. That's all the article really went into. So I sent that article to the grandson. I was like, "Do you know anything about this?" I mean, he didn't, like I said, he didn't really know much about any of the archaeological finds. He knew that his grandfather found a lot of important things, but this was one story he could give me some details on. And this was very interesting. He said, the grandson told me that this is a story that has gone from generation to generation to generation, and everyone has heard the altercation between Harry Starlight and grandfather Sterling. So what had happened was there was one of the archaeological finds that Newberry found was a bear. And this is very interesting because it was a stone idol bear about 2 foot tall, and it had a cross etched into the side along with a crescent moon. So, um, anyway, it made papers regionally talking about this bear. Like, I mean, I found the article and it goes into detail about how this bear looked, and that's how I was able to know what the bear looks like, and I write about it in the book. Well, anyway, by regionally, I mean it went, you know, down to Oklahoma. Harry Starlight lived in a boarding house or halfway house or something like that down in Tulsa, which is 3 hours away. He read this article about this bear. So when he read the article, it intrigued him. He got a bus ticket, drove all the way here to Springfield. When he got here in Springfield, he found out where Sterling Newberry lived. Went out of, I think Newberry lived like what, 8 miles east of Springfield. He went out to Newberry's home, knocked on the door. Newberry opened the door, and they became loose associates, I guess you would say. The grandson said. Um, so Starlight started to tell Newberry, "Would you like to meet the little people?" Like after they became friends, he was telling him, I'd like for you to meet how would you like to meet the little people?" Sterling Newberry was from Carroll County, Arkansas. So his grandmother was actually part Cherokee. And I've looked in Carroll County, Arkansas records, and I found reference to his grandmother, and I think she was even a medicine woman, a Cherokee medicine woman. So
Okay.
he knew about the little people being part Cherokee. Um, so anyway, he's like, yeah, I want to meet these little people. But mind you, he's also a reverend. He's a missionary Baptist pastor too. So that plays into the story, I believe. Anyway, so he meets this Harry Starlight. I don't know if it was a few days later or what, but they go out to this Indian burial site in near Fair Grove, Missouri. He brought along three other people. One of them was Sterling Newberry Jr., and I bet you the grandson probably heard this from Newberry Jr., but it was his son, Sterling Newberry Jr., and two other gentlemen. They go out to this Indian burial site, and Starlight has built a fire, and he's throwing a substance on the fire. The fire is turning blue and green and dancing, and he starts to do some kind of ritualistic chant. Um, what's also interesting is the article that talks about this altercation mentioned that they believe Starlight might have been under some kind of substance. Oh, they said drunk, but I wonder if he could have been like under on peyote or something like that, some kind of mind-altering drug. So anyway, um, he's doing this. He's doing this chant. He's throwing this. I believe he was throwing copper on the fire because it makes fire turn blue and green and dance. So he's throwing this copper on the fire and he's doing this chant. And then he says, Newberry, jump over the fire. Newberry, I think at this point, he's seeing what's manifesting before his eyes. He's seeing that he's on some kind of substance. He's seeing that he is doing this pagan-like chant, this occultic, ritualistic chant, and him being a Baptist pastor. I think at first he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. I want to meet the little people. But then as he's seeing it manifest before his eyes, the Holy Spirit's like, no, like, you got to stop this. You do not want to open this door. So Newberry decides, no, I'm not. We're done here, Starlight. I'm not jumping over the fire. Thanks for being willing, but I shouldn't have. We're not going to deal with this anymore. Well, this made Starlight mad. Then he looks at his son, Sterling Newberry Jr., and says, Newberry Jr., why don't you jump over the fire? But Sterling Newberry chimed in and said, no, I said, we're not doing this. And my son's not going to do it either. We're leaving. We're going home. Well, this really made Starlight mad. He proceeded to say, well, I will jump over the fire. He jumped over the fire and then started to attack Newberry. Luckily, these two other gentlemen pulled Starlight off. Cops came. They arrested Starlight. Little people never showed up in the story, but they arrested Starlight. He goes to jail. But Newberry, being a man of faith, the grandson said he was a man who truly tried to turn the other cheek. He decided not to press charges. He just wanted Newberry to be out of his life. So he's like, I won't press charges as long as, I'm sorry, I just want Starlight out of my life. So Newberry did not press charges as long as Starlight went back to Tulsa. So they let Starlight out and he goes back. It's funny because right after the cops show up to arrest him, the gentlemen were all going back to their vehicle. Newberry Jr., and the two other gentlemen. Well, remember I said that Starlight came to a knowledge of Sterling Newberry because he read the article about this bear idol. He told Newberry, I need you to bring that bear idol with you. It's very important for this ritual. So Newberry did. He brought the idol, but he outsmarted Starlight because he hid it in the wheel well. So apparently, while this whole ritual was going on, either Starlight must have found a way to sneak away for a little bit because whenever they got to the car, it looked like someone had gone rummaging through the
He
car.
he, pro- he probably had somebody out there rummaging for him.
And that's what I think. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if while he was doing this chant and this ritual, he had an accomplice
Yeah.
who went and was looking in the car and didn't find anything. So you have three things.
Or it was
He's
the
under,
little people.
yeah, yeah. So you have three things. You have he was under a substance, he didn't get full participation, and then he didn't even claim the bear idol. So I think all three of those really perturbed him, and that's what escalated to him attacking Newberry. But I just thought that that was a very interesting story.
Yeah.
It really has nothing to do, I mean, it does, but it didn't really have anything to do with like any of the archaeological finds he had found or
Well,
giants, but it did.
but it did something about that bear.
Hmm.
This chieftain
Yeah,
wanted that bear for something, right? Like he
yeah,
recognized it as being a significant relic, it sounds like.
yeah. And that and but I thought it was very, very interesting because as I've looked more into the whole giants, you hear a lot about the little people too.
Yeah. Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I've
that's
I've even heard some say that the little people are the ones, the moon-eyed people actually, who are the little people
yeah.
possibly made Cahokia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got the Moon Knight people, Cherokee. Here's one, and I know we're going to wrap it up. I'm just going to throw it in real quick. This is from Travis Roy's page, Giants of Ancient America, mummified race of dwarfs, 23 inches. They were only 23 inches tall. They were mummified. They were found within a canyon in New Mexico. Recent publicity has been given to the wonders of the cliff villages of the Gila Canyon in New Mexico, where the lofty walls of the box of the canyon are honeycombed with the excavated dwellings of a nation of dwarves whose mummies here and there found preserved by the stone dust for centuries are clad with woven clothes and ornamented with gay feathers and neck and waist. And it just goes on to describe this find, but a lot of little dwarves. And then there's here in Tennessee, they found
Yeah,
mass graveyards. I've got paperwork on it. I still need to do a show on it one day, but they found mass graveyards of little people here in Tennessee. White County, Tennessee is one area. The farmers were just, digging up graves. They were digging up little people
yeah.
that's what is in this. It's in all these documents. So
You
it's
know,
like, I mean, that's crazy stuff, right? But
yeah.
apparently this was a thing.
I've even found one up here in Missouri of an 18-inch skeleton, fully grown, would appear to be fully grown adult 18-inch that had like fangs.
Really?
Yeah, from like the 1800s.
It's wild.
I didn't print it off, but I thought it was pretty intriguing.
It's like Lord of the Rings, man.
Yeah,
North America was wild,
yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
Giants and dwarfs. Yeah, I mean, we could talk forever about this. Because I've come across the little people in other ways as well. And I know there's other researchers who are as well. People who aren't even looking for this
Hmm.
we could call it a supernatural angle. I think with the little people, it's like, it's complicated because they seem to be real because they left behind bodies, but
Yeah,
there also seems to be some sort of supernatural aura about them when you get
yeah.
into some of the cases. So it's real weird that like that. But I think they were real. But yeah, there's um you go back to the Bible, which I tried to do, or you know texts that seem to back up the Bible, like the Book of the Giants would be another one. I think that was also found Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah.
And they talk about how there were supernatural entities down here messing with creatures, creating
Hmm.
creatures, essentially like chimeric creatures, or breeding, messing with genes, like
Yeah.
splicing things together. I don't know how that looked. I don't know how that worked, but it's mentioned that this was being done. So who knows what happened with all that.
Well, and you see that we're trying to do that now. Like, where did we get this idea from?
I know, right?
I mean, didn't they just supposedly revive like last year, a 10,000-year-old white wolf, prehistoric white wolf?
Yeah.
I mean, where where do these ideas originate from? We don't. I mean, I feel like our civilization is just backboned or piggybacked from what was taught to them, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And you see it playing out in as it was in the days of Noah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean,
So,
that's the best way I think to put it, as things were in the days of Noah, they will be again, right?
mhm.
If I was to paraphrase that verse. But yeah, Genesis 6 and the Ozarks, folks. That's the book. I suggest going out and getting it, checking it out. I'm excited to see what you're working on next. Like this was a very exciting conversation, by the way. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having. Sorry, I'm getting.
We're done. We're done. We're wrapping
No,
it up.
you're
Dave.
fine. You're
But
fine.
I just want to say, I think that what you're working on now, I can tell is interesting because about some of these accounts that I was that I was talking about,
Hmm.
and it seems like you've been looking into it. I think that's pretty exciting, and I blanked on it earlier. It was so I'll just throw it in now. Thuban is the language that the Templars would use. It was a witch's language, like a magical language that they would use to encrypt things in Thuban, and
Okay.
I strongly suspect that X is, when the Templars are using it, is tied in with that. It's sort of like a grimoire language, and I think
Interesting.
that might be why that might be tied into with why it shows up in Minnesota on the runestone there. But
Okay.
anyway, I forgot the name is Thuban, so got that
No,
out of the way. And
you're fine,
yeah,
man. You're fine.
tell everybody where they can find you and find your work, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm on Facebook. The name that it's on the screen is what my name is on Facebook, Nicholas John Daigle. You can also find my book it's exclusively on Amazon. So you just type in Genesis 6 and the Ozarks in the search engine, and it's the only book that comes up. So,
Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, we'll talk again, and
yeah.
we'll leave it at that for today. Thanks again for coming on. As always, and I'll have the links. I'll have his links below. Everybody check that out and go check out his book. And
I can send you a link for my book too on Messenger. So
excellent. All right. Cool. Thanks again, everybody. As always, break the mold, conquer the realm, and thanks for listening.